Hey guys, it's Brian with Right on Red podcast and the Divide Radio here in Rochester, New York. Let's talk about something real quick before I go into this meeting I have. Let's talk about the bail reform in New York State, which isn't reform at all. It was simply elimination of cash bail for basically everyone, unless you're going to murder or attempt to murder someone. I mean, we're talking for child pornography. We're talking for guns. You have an illegal gun? You're fine. Show up to court. Sure, you'll be there. We'll take your word for it. Beat it. 3 gun charges later, someone's shooting at the cops. No big deal, right? So anyways, I'm going to show you some slides which have the statistics as to why bail reform must be reformed again. And I do believe to an extent the intention was legitimate, as nobody should spend time in jail for the same crime as someone else with the same record, previous record, if or simply because they're poor and the other person is wealthy. I mean, I've discussed before, whereas you heard, Jacob Blake's father and some other people screaming, there's 2 justice systems, one for black people, one for white people in this country. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's not true. There are 2 justice systems, though, to an extent. And it's for wealth versus poverty. Color does not play a factor in it at all. When somebody throws out that bullshit statistic about black people get longer sentences than white people for the same crime, it's a bullshit statistic, because if you look, what wasn't taken into account was their previous history of criminal offenses, previous convictions, misdemeanors and felonies. Now, that's huge. You have to take that into account. That's one of the leading things that judges have taken into account in the past when giving bail or when sentencing someone. So if you show up with a petty larceny charge for one time, your first time, nothing on your record, they're probably going to ACD you. But if you show up with petty larceny and you've done it 20 times, you might spend a few months in the county jail. And it has nothing to do with your color, again. But to get back to the point, there are differences between 2 people who commit the exact same crime, doesn't matter their color again, same previous criminal record, same age, same career and everything, except for one had this huge inheritance and has tons of money, and the other one is living paycheck to paycheck. So the one living paycheck to paycheck has to get a public defender. The other one hires one of the best defense attorneys in the city, the county, the state, whatever. Who do you think is going to get the better sentence? It's obvious there. So that should have, and I agree, that should not be a determining factor in your sentencing, but it is. Lawyers play a big part in what you're sentenced to. It's that simple. It always has. But it's a false narrative to say that's black and white. Do you think OJ, got off because he was innocent? No, he got off because he had amazing lawyers and he was wealthy and famous. I mean, if you're a poor white kid in the city and you get nabbed and have a public defender, you're going to get, the shit too. It's just how it goes. And that needs to be addressed for sure. Just like the bail needed to be addressed, as far as maybe taking into account how much the person makes and assessing bail on an economic schedule. So therefore, someone in lower class has to pay this much. A middle class person would have to pay this much. Someone making this amount, over 100K, would have to pay this much for that crime. Cool. There's solutions out there. There's answers. There's ways to do this right. But to just say no more cash bail is crazy and insane. And now, because of that, you can see these statistics clearly show that when this started and jailhouse bookings went way down, violent crime went way up. It was like here and here, and they kind of just crossed. Like so many things have done. over the last year with this presidency. Whoop. But anyways, you could, I mean, there's a clear correlation there. So for anybody in New York State Assembly or Senate to tell Kathy Hochul, or who, I'll give her credit because she does want to, change this bail reform and do something about it. Now she does, of course, because, election time's rolling around. But anyways, I'll give her credit there. She wants to do it. So the Assembly and the Senate said no way. I mean, they're all very progressive. They said, no way, we're not doing it. At first it was, unless you can show me proof that this is leading to more crime. Well, boom, there's proof. There's tons of proof. Look at the cities. And one of them had the nerve to say, well, we need stricter gun laws. Dude, seriously? You can't even carry in New York City. You have to have your sidearm, literally, if you have a carrying permit, if you have a pistol permit in New York City, you have to have your piece in one safe, your ammunition in another safe, and a trigger lock on your gun. Somebody breaks in, it's like, hold on a minute here. Let me give me about 5 minutes. Let me get this out and load it, and then we'll talk. It's stupid. I don't know. Hope people don't follow that, to be honest. But and only time you can carry it with you in your vehicle or when you got leave is to go to the closest gun range to your address and back. That's it. That's it. So wouldn't that mean crime should just be gone in New York City? If common sense gun laws and was the reason that crime's way up, because we don't have them, doesn't that mean that New York City won't be one of the safest places in the world? Doesn't that mean that places like, let's say Big Sky, Montana or whatever, would have some of the highest murder rates per capita in the United States? Places in rural Texas would just be overrun with per capita murders rates? No. They're not. Let's just say that. It's statistically speaking, you can see the data, you can see the evidence. Places with gun laws that are not extreme, that are not, very strict to law-abiding citizens, that allow citizens to carry or own pistols or easily get hold of, long guns. And places like that, states like that, have the lowest crime rates. Isn't that weird how legal gun ownership has the lowest violent crime rates? While places like New York City, who have the strictest gun laws, in Chicago as well, have the highest crime rates. Rochester, New York, right here. Number one, baby. Number one murder capital of the United States, 2021. We held that title sometime in the 80s or 90s, I believe, too. But we relinquished it for a while. But we're back. We got it back thanks to some piss poor leadership here. And, defunding police and tying their hands behind their back. But anyways, we have strict gun laws. We're in New York State, right? New York State is a cesspool for gun ownership. It's just horrible. So shouldn't that mean that we shouldn't be holding that title? I mean, why are there, in a city with 200,000 people in Rochester, why were there 460 shootings last year? And why are we on pace to break not only the shootings this year, but also our record murders that we set last year at 81? I mean, that shouldn't be happening, right? Shootings should be lower. Why is New York City just have shootings every single day if their gun laws are so strict? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe it's because these criminals don't follow the gun laws. Maybe because they don't register their weapons. Maybe because long guns are used in like less than 1% of murders. It's illegal handguns, just so you know. Therefore, gun laws would do nothing to stop criminals from owning guns. It's that simple. They're not going to turn them in at a drop box. They're not going to safely dispose of them in one of your community buybacks or whatever. They're going to keep them. They're going to keep their guns, and they're going to know that Johnny Smith over there walking down the street with his briefcase going to his job likely isn't carrying a gun because he's a law-abiding citizen. So guess what? Johnny Smith is getting robbed and hit in the face with the butt of the gun and maybe shot. So it's ridiculous to say that. So take the guns out of the damn equation. What is the number one thing, the only thing that changed at the time of this crime crisscrossing the graph here, where bookings into the jail went way down, and murders and shootings and violent crime went way up. Oh, bail reform. It was right there. Bail reform, I see. Along with, obviously, the defund the police movement and all that nonsense didn't help. And then you had recently you've had the less is more parole. Sandra Doyley, our DA, stated that the last 10 people that were apprehended for murder in our city were parolees. What do you know? Letting people out, letting a guy out now who's 80-something years old, a psychopath who raped and murdered a 14-year-old girl a long time ago. Long time ago. That doesn't matter. This guy shouldn't be seeing the light of day, but he is now. Welcome back. Eric Smith, psychopath, look him up. Look him up and then look into his eyes. See the demonic evil that's in this man. Wonder why he is hanging out in a town near you right now. But bail reform is proven to reform nothing but a criminal's career. It reforms it and turns it awesome. Makes it easier. The progressives seem to really love making criminals' lives easier. It's screw the law-abiding citizens. Because guess what? Even in the most poverty-riddled areas of Rochester or New York City or any city, the vast, overwhelming majority of people that live there are law-abiding citizens. And guess what? The amount of people committing these violent crimes and all these crimes, it's tiny, it's minute, it's a small percentage. For example, in Chicago, a city of millions of people, it's the state they identified, it's the same 1,600 felons and criminals that are continuing to commit these crimes. So if you know that, why don't you go get them? In Rochester, it's got to be about the same 200 to 300 people. So tighten it up, get the list of names, you know who they are, and go after them. Oh, you can't target people, though. You can't target people. And problem is, if you get them, they're getting right back out. Unless you nab them for murder, they're getting right back out. And that's the problem. So bail reform, something needs to change now, or else it's going to continue this way. Progressives are lunatics. Remember that. It's a mental illness to be a progressive. Progressive thinking is mental illness, which clearly explains why when something doesn't go their way, they resort to being an entitled whiny baby and screaming and crying and getting violent and this and that, because it's a mental illness. And what happens, they don't know how to handle things. They don't know how to think. They don't know how to deal with issues. January 6th, dude, those people were idiots too. But how often do you see conservatives acting violent? And I'm not talking about a few far-right lunatics that we as conservatives condemn, and we know they're crazy, and we don't want anything to do with far-right lunacy and extremism. But it used to be all of us as a group, on the left or the right, hovered around the center and didn't want anything to do with extremism on either side of the spectrum. But lately, it seems like many Democrats and people and corporations and the media have accepted far left extremism as okay. Suddenly they're crazy. They're still crazy. The stuff they say is insane. It's just, it's unbelievable that it's even repeated sometimes. The fact that they go after some of the most minute and ridiculously small problems when we're facing real issues. Oh, crime, violent crime. I'm offended by this word. Get out of here. So look at these examples again of the proof and the evidence that bail reform doesn't work. And let's do something about it. Call your senator, call your congressperson, call your state representative, your county representative, and push, and vote red this November. Let's get it done.